right, I know my parsha. Chevra, thank you guys so much for having me. Really appreciate it. Okay, all right. כולם מבין עברית. כולם מבין אנגלית. Okay. Okay, בסדר. It's much better. Okay, Shem Shkoyach. So, there are many different topics and discussions that should be had at a time like this, in a place like this, but definitely at a time like this where we see that Hashem is shaking up the world. He's shaking up the world in a very, very radical way. And ultimately, we find ourselves in the midst of probably the greatest battle that we've ever faced as humanity. There's sheker, it's very, very loud, and it's very, very hard for us to be able to see what the emes is. What is Hashem's emes? What is Hashem trying to say to me? And unfortunately, when it gets extremely, extremely loud, it makes it so difficult to hear Hashem that to some degree we're all sort of moving in the dark. And Hashem has expectations that seem completely unreal. So I was looking for, fortunately I find it later, I think I was in the wrong parsha. The ki tetzei lemelchama that Hashem says when a person goes out, when he's sending Am Yisrael out to war, he says that as you go out, and if you see that they have horses, they have chariots, they're bigger than you, Hashem says that you're not allowed to be al tira, you're not allowed to be afraid. And you should know that I, Hashem, I'm going to go in front of you, I'm going to go before you, and I'm going to fight for you. I, Hashem, myself, I'm going to save you. Now, what's very, very interesting about this pasuk, even though I'm not quoting it verbatim because I couldn't find it, I just lost my train of thought of where it was, that we all understand that sometimes we're in a war. We're in a war between ourselves. We're fighting against ourselves. We could be fighting against other people, but we're mamash in a war. And what determines whether or not a person is victorious is whether or not the fact that they're fighting, but that they remember that they're actually in a war. Because that's what's stopping us. Sometimes we forget we're mamash in the war. So Hashem says over there, Al tira, a person's not allowed to be afraid. Sounds like a crazy commandment. Hashem is giving us a command. You're not allowed to be afraid, right? Hashem says in the Shema that you have to love me and you shall love Hashem, right? How can you give me a commandment to love you? Either I love you, I don't love you. Either Hashem, I'm going to trust in you, I'm not going to trust in you. So how can I change whether or not I trust you? And Hashem is saying even bigger than that. He's saying that I'm going to go and fight this war for you. And I, Hashem, myself, am going to save you. One of the biggest problems that we have that stops us from being able to fight the war that we have today is the lack of Yirah. Yiras Hashem. The lack of the discussion of Yiras Hashem. We're very, very busy, as we should be, as we're sitting here in the Eish Kodesh, and I think it was the Rebbe P.S. Ezner who said himself that after the Milchama, Hashem, the way that Hashem was manhig the world, went from one of more of Yira to Ahava. I think it was Ahava and Simcha, Ahava and something else, that he says that Hashem moved in this direction. But we're not allowed to forget that we have to have Yira. Yiras Hashem. We're talking about Yiras Hashem. It's one of the things that are in our hands to have, the Gemara says. That in the common code, Hashem's not busy with. Is the Yiras Hashem. Yiras Hashem. But what place do I have for this in this world right now where it's mamish, it's hard and it's impossible. I fear a lot of things, but Hashem is very, very hard to feel. I can't have that type of relationship with Hashem. What's very interesting is over the last, 15, 20 years, but it's been very intense. We talked about Ummah and Rosh Hashanah. Rabbi Nachman's fame has only grown more and more and more and more over the years, even since I came to Breslov myself. I already went to Ummah now, my 10th year. And the most famous Torahs from Rabbi Nachman are all about the Hava, which is appropriate. It's the whole Muhus and the whole essence of his Torah between that and Avodas Hashem. But we also, Rabbi Nachman says that the prerequisite to Avodas Hashem, that at the very beginning a person has to have a certain type of year. But what type of year are we talking about? So I wanna give you guys all an example that you'll all understand. How many in the room play basketball? Play basketball before? A few pickup games? Yeah? Anybody in here nice on the court, or you guys just out there wasting people's time?
No, the Avreichim challenged the Bucker into a game, and we won.
Didn't happen. I disagree.
Well, we had more points.
I don't remember that.
No, we didn't win. We just had more points, you know.
Maybe they won, but we had more points.
Oh, you remember that?
So,
Like Clara, you're in denial. You're in denial.
the reason, Chavra, I asked you this is because it's very, very interesting. Usually, in most cases, ever since I've been running pickup games since I was a kid, I haven't played in years, but there's always usually one guy who shows up to the court when you're ready to play pickup game that everybody wants him on their team and they don't want to play against him. The other problem is every guy thinks he's that guy also too, right?
There's always one of those.
Always the guy who also thinks it's him, but it's not him. But no, right? But there's always who would agree? But usually there's that one guy, that nobody wants to play against him. We want him on our team. The whole goal is whatever. If I want to be capped so I can make sure that he's on my squad, right? Because he himself equals like 3 or 4 people, all right? So, what is Hashem saying to us? It's a nimshol here. Hashem is saying, why is it that you need to have yira? Because you won't trust me. If you don't know my godless, you don't know how big I am, and you don't know of my greatness as Hashem, and you don't fear this, right? Then who's going to want me on their team? And when it's time for you to go out to battle, and you have to go and face the challenges of this world, you have to go face the Bilbulim, you have to go face the Sheker, you're going to have to face all the different things that you have to face, right? How are you going to trust in me if you don't believe that I'm greater than the very battle that you have to fight? So then here comes the year of Hashem. And I spent, unfortunately, a lot of my time in my past life at a lot of funerals. Baruch Hashem, maybe just because I don't know as many Yidden, I haven't been to a lot of Jewish funerals, but I've been to a lot of Goyish funerals. And I would imagine that they say it also at Jewish funerals. But one of the main things you'll always hear about it, even if the person was Mamasheh, a Rasha Gamor, right? You always hear to know him. You're always here. To know him was to love him. To know him was to love him, right? And some people it's actually true. But the unfortunate part is that they say it almost about anybody, right? The emes is, what is Hashem saying to us when He commands that we love Him? Hashem commands that we trust Him. He's saying that if you know me, you'd love me. If you know me, you'll trust me. If you know me, there'd be no question of having your Hashem, because my godless will be before you. And that which that yira, that respect, that reverence that Hashem is due, in order that we should know that we know who's going to go war, who's going to go battle for us, that we know Hashem in that type of way. So Hashem says that one of the reasons why Am Yisrael suffer as a nation, He says inside the Navi, is because they don't know me. The ox knows his master. He knows the horse knows. Everybody knows, except for Am Yisrael doesn't know their master. This yediyah, this knowing of Hashem, is one of an intimate connection that Hashem wants, that every single Jew, the Jewish neshama, craves for this. The reason why we have so much, the Bayam Dachacha, Rabbi Chimai, he's like spelling this out so sweet in the Sefer that it's amazing. That the whole reason, this is the essence of the Torah to the Baal Shem too, is that the whole reason that Hashem created us as beings that run after Tana, we run after pleasures, right? It's because that Zivatorah, Biduk. We run after these pleasures, right? It's because, right, our neshama is made that way. As we are made in a certain way that we want to receive Tanug. We want to have some type of hana. The only thing is, and what we're created for. The Ramchal says actually in the introduction that this whole tachlis, I think the first chapter of the Mesilat Yesharim, whole tachlis of why we're here, says this is the corridor, but whole tachlis is to get to this place of this ultimate tanug and devekis and pleasure, this hana we're supposed to be receiving from Hashem. And Hashem wants to give to us, and we crave for it. So this is why we run after everything else. And this is the biggest battle, like the Baal Tanya says, that a person, as Mamish, has two kingdoms inside of him fighting. You are the battlefield. You are the battlefield, right? And both sides, you have the kingdom of light and the kingdom of darkness. You have the nefesh habehamit and you have the nefesh hasichli, and these two things want to win, and neither one of them want to relinquish any power to the other side. This is the war that we're fighting nonstop, and sometimes it happens inside, sometimes it happens outside. But ultimately, a person needs to know that if a person gives it over to Hashem, if you give up, if you relinquish all of your own efforts and your own powers and give them over to Hashem by getting to know Hashem, learning Hashem's Torah, spending time with Hashem. I'm going to tell you about an ancient Jewish practice. It's called Hit Bodedut. I'm not telling you this because I'm a breast lover. This was long before Rabbi Nachman. You can look at it. In fact, it's more Jewish and more ancient than Rashi and Tosfos, to talk to Hashem and to scream out to Him. Open up to, you don't believe me? Open up Chumash, open up Tanakh, all the way until we get to the Anshe Knesset Haggadolah. When you're looking at Ezra's fasting 3 days before he left on his journey. Nehemiah, before he comes back to build, he fasts. He's walking around outside, pacing, talking to Hashem. This is the most Jewish thing you can possibly do, and it is the fastest way for a person to get to know Hashem, to know who Hashem is, and to have kirvas Hashem, to be close to Hashem. And ultimately a person will be protected, and he'll be able to go out and battle this war, and Hashem will be the one doing the fighting for him. We shall be zocher, to have kirvas Hashem, to speak to Hashem, to get to know Hashem. Hashem says, not enough to know about me. I'm sitting down, I'm being honest with you. I left everything because I seen the light of the Torah. I left my whole entire life behind. I said this shit, I'm giving up everything because I seen the light of the Torah. But the Torah is not important if you don't know whose Torah you're learning, right? You set up and you open up a book and you see the light of the book, it's coming from somewhere else. It's not important as important to be learning, right? It's learning, knowing who you're learning from. Not saying that learning is not important. Learning is the ultimate importance. But understand what I'm saying. It's not learning. It's whose Torah am I learning? Get to know Hashem. Get to know Hashem. Don't be thrown off. Even if I'm learning something, I'm caught up in a sugya. It's a very, very good practice. If I'm caught up in something and I'm talking about, Baba Metzia and lost objects, or so, and there's no mention of Hashem anywhere around there, don't forget whose Torah you're learning. You're learning Hashem's Torah. You're learning Hashem's Torah. We shouldn't forget Hashem. To know Hashem, be close to Him, B'ezrat Hashem, and we'll be able to ultimately be victorious and win the Milchama. Huh?
How did you get such a clear vision? Where do you learn?
Who, me? Yeah. Clear vision? Oh, thank you, Ray. Also, clear vision comes from, I spent a lot of time talking to Hashem. You don't understand. Hashem, this is such a shortcut to not only knowing Hashem's godless, but to clarity, because case in point, today I was out, I was talking to Hashem today, just now. I was in the forces, in the back roads over here. There's where I don't know if you guys are ever over by where David slayed Goliath. It's right here, right over here. Yeah, I think yeah. So over there. So I said, Hashem, I have a lot of things to slay. That's why I'm talking about. Well, I had no idea what I was going to talk about 10 minutes ago when I came here, but it's all about the war. I went out there to go do battle. My battle was with my sword. The sword is my mouth. So I went to go talk to Hashem over there. And I'm dealing with a certain sugya right now in life that I need a lot of clarity from. But I screamed to Hashem until He gave me clarity, and I left out of the never feeling more clear in my life. It's a shortcut. I can take it the long route to talk to 37 people and a psychiatrist is shrinking to everybody else. I could just go directly to the boss who's already running everything. So spending time with Hashem is the ultimate way to get the clarity. Your Torah learning is something different. And the amount of hours that I've spent, and this is even, like I said, this is how I came to Yiddishkeit, by the way. I was crying out to Hashem. I only had Tanakh. I was always reading. I didn't know anything about Torah Shabbat Pei or nothing. I was reading. So I started fasting, started praying. Every day I was praying for hours and hours and hours. And it wasn't until when I came into Yiddishkeit that nobody else was as excited. I thought I was crazy, right? Until I found the Breslov Seforim, and then I said, "Oh, I'm not crazy," And Baruch Hashem, that's also the way to get clarity, is to go talk to Hashem, and then from that your eyes are gonna open different when you sit there before the Seforim. It's something different, completely different.
Eitzah Kloli.
Eitzah Klali.
Tarech Alfei.
Yep. Yeah.
I think in clarity, how do you connect? You said that having Yira shows that you have trust in Hashem.
Right.
Those two.
So, according to this specific pasuk, no. According to this actual pasuk that I'm